Cineboys to Cinemen, episode 22.
22.
22. On the way to 50.
Yep. Halfway to 50, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Hope you're well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. This week, The Dial of Destiny.
Yes.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, a curious artifact.
I see what you've done there.
Thanks, mate.
You've tied it into the plot and the kind of themes set out by Spielberg in 1981 with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, I have not been sleeping coming up with jokes for this episode. Mostly just sort of flagellating myself, because I haven't got any good ones, and that was the only one. So yes, Mangold taking the reins from Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And making a film that I think, again, we sort of mentioned in last week's episode that there'd be a lot of through lines to The Flash in the sense of this pursuit of nostalgia. Or as you said, legacy films.
Yeah.
This is like a symptom of the time. A nostalgia episode all the way back in, was it episode 2?
2, yeah.
Fucking hell. Episode 2, we sort of talk about that quite a lot, and it's a very common theme in our discussions. And I feel like this might pop up again a little bit more, but again, we'll try and sort of skirt around because we don't want to sort of retread well-walked earth. But it's definitely a film that swings for that, and again doesn't really hit it on that basis, and doesn't really get the emotional connection it desperately craves.
No, I think
because of it.
Yeah, it's a franchise that I became familiar with when I was sort of about 9 or 10. They were on telly, I think, and we just taped them. And my parents were just like, "Oh, you might like these. These are like classics." Oh, okay, yeah, I'll give them a watch. I enjoyed them fine, and I gave them a once over. But I never had a particular affinity for this franchise anyway. It's not like Star Wars in my mind anyway. Like that.
Okay.
It's, although obviously it's by the same folks, it doesn't hold the same amount of warmth as other franchises do. So it is interesting watching the legacy ones, the 2 legacy ones. So even I actually watched about half an hour of Crystal Skull as well.
Oh wow!
In preparation because
brave man.
I just wanted to see what they were trying to tap into and what they failed to tap into with the last one, and then I wanted to see if Dial of Destiny did a better job. I'll discuss it later, but yeah, curious.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of the same as you. I mean, I do love the original Indiana Jones films. Just a sucker for that Spielbergian charm, man. I think.
Oh yeah.
Had it been anyone else, I'm not sure if it had been pulled off quite as well. But no, I am a big fan of the 3 films. Not emphatic. And again, I think I sort of share that same curiosity as you around the nature of the legacy film to something that I'm not necessarily as attached to. So I think it should be an interesting discussion, and it will lend itself to a discussion, I guess, around Spielberg, around the original films, and how The Dial of Destiny seeks to take its audience back to that time and feel those things in a modern age.
Yes, nice.
So let's do it.
Questing the cinematic void. Righty-o.
Righty-ho. I just feel like I have to sort of say that I basically said I love the films, but then wasn't attached to films. I'm more attached to the Spielbergian charm than I am the films necessarily. Right. A few more comments this week.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think we're getting to grips with this social media thing.
I think we could set up some meetings with some Silicon Valley chips. Chips? Silicon Valley, I can't think of the actual adjective to describe people that work in tech. One of those people. We'll get a meeting set up. It's going to be amazing. We'll just book out the Apollo for a Cineboys tour. Just max out our credit cards. 6 or 7 of them.
Do a Kevin Smith, it just backfires. But yeah, no, some quite nice comments, mostly around the subject of Indiana Jones, which we'll save as we're sort of going to try and thread them through the discussion. But we had a question which is a bit broad, so I think we'll try and tackle it a little bit. From Dale, who seems to be a regular commenter, so thank you, Dale.
Hello, Dale, and thank you.
pretending that I don't know you that well, which is weird. Sorry, Dale. Our TV series is the new movie, is his question.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because it used to be the water cooler thing was all about movies. Like, I mean, you get sort of people talking about soaps, and I'm thinking now back into sort of late 90s, early 2000s, but you never got people talking about television as much as you do now.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's so much. I mean, the production value of television has gone up massively. It's now equal to, if not in some cases exceeding, films. So yes, in that sense, but they're never going to get the theatrical magic, in my personal opinion.
No, I completely agree with you. I think film was always the big daddy, wasn't it, for a long time?
Yeah,
I think it has a sort of a richer history, creatively speaking, I think.
Yep, yeah, sure.
I think TV, was always the cheaper of the two to make, and I think that meant that a lot of the sort of, that would obviously have an impact on production and the quality of productions.
Yeah.
The quality, not necessarily the quality of the performers, because you get some great actors in TV dramas long before the renaissance of television. But I just think, if you wanted something that had the slick and the sort of artistic and creative freedom, it was film, because I think TV was always always hemmed back by maybe sort of rules and regulations around broadcasting, etc.
Oh, completely, yeah, certainly in the United Kingdom.
Not just around creative decisions and thematic stuff, but also technical stuff. There's so much stuff. You would know that far better than I do, but
oh my god, yeah, so everything used to be interlaced for a start, which if you try and play it on your television now, everything's progressive now, it looks shit. There's a thing called combing, which you'll see in some old like video footage. It basically, there's these kind of horrible stripes around everything, and it's an absolute nightmare to fix as well.
I can imagine.
So from a broadcasting standards point of view, you're going to be restricted. Like, I mean, you have amazing filmmakers do some real fucking quality television. Like, I'm thinking in the 90s, David Lynch with Twin Peaks.
And
then more recently,
still haven't seen, which is terrible, isn't it?
Oh, it's all right. It's a tough pill to swallow, even if you like Lynch. And
I've seen quite a bit of, I think, the first season, and I'm just so shit with TV, and I never went back to it, but I'm going to. That's one thing when I set myself a target, because there's you can't say, as a friend Yami mentioned a few times, has pointed out to me a few times, you can't say you love Lynch and not watch.
Oh yeah, okay. It is great and very watchable, and it's got a really unique, classic Lynch. It's got a very sort of unique atmosphere. You also have people like Fincher as well, doing some really great television, like Mindhunter, and he's involved in quite a lot of television at the moment.
Yeah, and I think even before the renaissance of television, there were directors who started out in TV and transitioned.
Yeah. Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
Just a couple
Spielberg,
of...
I think.
I think he did, yeah. Boyle did a couple of episodes of Inspector Morse.
There you go.
I haven't actually seen them. Sacrilege, I know.
The idea is someone just messaged and say you're not a Danny Boyle fan to watch his 2 directed episodes of Inspector Morse. But no, I think it's a long answer for there, Dale. But I think it has undoubtedly gone through a renaissance. You think about maybe like The Sopranos was the first thing to kick it off, this idea of breaking free from the shackles of what people expect from television, and creating fantastic narratives. I mean, I'm notoriously bad with TV shows, so I'm perhaps not the best place to sort of stick up for TV, but I think it would be tremendously arrogant not to accept its brilliance when in the right hands with the right creative minds.
I think so.
I think it's also been aided by the streaming platform suits television a lot more than it suits movies.
So I
think that's been to its benefit. I think film, it's more of an event, a film. I think historically it's always been an event, and more so I think still now than TV. That's not to say that TV can't be that, and I'm sure there are examples where it has been, but and maybe my opinion's a bit more rooted in bias and that old-fashioned sentiment, but
no, there's a closed loop narratively as well with films, which I really find quite comforting. There's an ending is so satisfying to me. Like even weird aside, Spider-Man 3, right? Not a good film, but I remember seeing it at a cinema thinking this is pretty bang average, and for some reason the ending got me, and I bounded out of the cinema thinking that was fucking great. Like, I love that. But it's just that there's something about a resolution that is really unique to film that I think television does ignore. And it's a problem because smack bang in the middle of a narrative, a TV series you love dearly will be cancelled, and you'll never see the end of it. You'll never see the resolution.
That is an interesting point. I've not considered that.
And also, it's a good question relating back to Indiana Jones, because they did quite a lot of TV series. They did like young Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about that when I was watching the film.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good sign necessarily. That I was thinking about a far worse product than the original films, or indeed the new film. But no, yeah. So in answer to your question, Dale, film in our eyes is still superior.
Yeah.
So fuck TV. No, TV's definitely got its place. Although I think it has become almost a little bit, the high concept good TV drama. I think there's a sense of arrogance about TV already, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But it's kind of earned, and there's still good stuff coming out. So So my plan is, if I ever get to retire, or survive to the age of retirement age, I will sit and make my way through all the TV shows I missed.
Start with Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Well, Twin Peaks, I'm going to make an exception for, because it's Lynch, and I need to stop being berated by people on the basis of being a Lynch fan, which is completely acceptable, actually. Nice. So Indiana Jones, for many, a sort of watershed moment culturally.
Yeah, definitely.
I sort of said in the intro and in the beginning of this sort of discussion before we got sidetracked by Dale's question, thanks, Dale. No, please do keep sending messages in.
Yeah.
That Spielbergian charm is why I love those films so much.
Yeah, no, I think so.
What do you think, if I was to say Spielbergian charm, what do you think I mean?
Unexpected, not even they're not twists, just unexpected things happening unexpectedly. I know that's a really strange way to put it, but like Munich is filled with moments like that. He's so good at leading you down one path and then showing you something completely different. And in the case of Indiana Jones, it happens quite frequently with gags. So you get, in Raiders, you get that bit where the guy starts swinging his sword about.
Oh, yeah,
and you expect a fight to happen, and you're gunning for a fight, and you'd be really, really happy with one. But then there's just a joke that comes out of nowhere. Just bang, like he shoots him, and I love that. And there's and again in the second one, in Temple of Doom, he's closing the plane door. So long, Lao Che. Closes the door. There it is. It's like Lao Che's aeroplane company or something.
Oh, right, okay.
It's like Lao Che Freighters, or I don't know. And there's just something so. He deals with the unexpected so brilliantly, whether that be for for the purposes of humour or for the purposes of like dramatic unease. That's where I think it comes from. And obviously you got the classic things about sort of father figures and a lot of things that are coming of age as well. But that's where I think it comes from, the unexpected, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What about you?
When I think about Spielbergian charm, to me it's like a childlike sense of wonderment towards a subject matter.
Right, yeah.
And it's not the childlike sensibilities that mean that when you grow older you lose the ability to connect to it.
Okay.
Or connect to them.
Yeah.
You grow with them.
Right,
and it's the kind of childlike wonder that actually it's within you your whole life.
So that persists.
That sort of boundless sort of enthusiasm for the unknown, the boundless enthusiasm for adventure.
Yeah.
And sort of unlocking that part of yourself that seldom is unlocked. I think it's a really, really difficult thing to do, to connect earnestly and genuinely with that childlike part of yourself that is residual, has been battered by the 9 to 5 or Ron Seal. Or do you know what I mean though? Like the banality of the modern world just has this ability to sort of like try and streamline you into this sort of individual that just plays by the same social conventions as everyone else, etc., etc. I'm not going to fucking harp on about that.
No, but I get what you mean.
This is a sociology podcast, and also I have no idea what I'm talking about. But like the beauty of films like that are that they can sort of tap into that part of you that is residual, or in some cases for prolonged periods non-existent.
Okay, yeah.
And it sort of resurrects this sort of excitement and enthusiasm for something.
Yeah.
And I think Spielberg at his best is when working in these sorts of parameters. Again, you talk about his work in dramatic or hard-hitting work, which he can absolutely do. But in terms of these kinds of adventure movies. I just don't think there's anyone that can sort of hit those heights and make you feel that way like him.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, what I said earlier in the intro, that's why these films are so good. I think in other hands, I'm not sure if these films would be as beloved.
No, I agree.
I think Harrison Ford's fantastic and iconic, deservedly so in his own right, but I just think that Spielbergian charm is absolutely essential to these films, and that connectivity to that childlike sense of wonder,
exploration,
just these sort of tried and tested things, these themes and ideas that have long enraptured children, long before the internet and television. Enid Blyton, Is it Edith Blyton or Enid Blyton?
It's Enid Blyton.
Enid Blyton.
I listened to a podcast about her recently.
Do you know what I mean? I've never read those books, but like the impression I get from people that have told me about them when they used to read them when they were kids, it was like this sense of wonderment about the world around them.
Yeah,
this enthusiasm to get out there.
Completely.
And I just think that really speaks to that. Even though as a kid I wasn't sort of driven by that impulse, I still would go out into sort of the sort of horrible woodlands in the Derbyshire area that had condoms dangling from trees and stuff, and I still had that sense of wonderment. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh man, no, I agree. I completely agree. And and Enid Blyton's work actually sort of taps into the same.
What's condoms and trees?
The condoms and trees.
Isn't the name one of her books? Her 30th novel.
Yeah, the condoms and trees of adventure. You're right. It's something that you do lose when you're an adult, I guess, because the world opens up to you more freely, and therefore the sort of precious 3 hours you had after school where you were allowed to go into the woods and like kind of pretend you were like an archer or something. You do lose that, and it is retained in these films.
It becomes less acceptable to do that. I mean, if you're doing that in your 30s, people are going to sort of probably one's going to go in the woods when you're around.
Absolutely not. No.
I just think you sort of just see it more and more like that streamlined adult existence, and I think it's why these films are so special to so many people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he is the quintessential adventurer, isn't he? He's sort of not one of the first. I mean, obviously, Indiana Jones is very derivative of quite a lot of earlier work by sort of serialized cartoons and stuff. I think I can't remember the exact point, like reference point, but there's it makes you want to go out and look for artifacts and get chased by a big boulder or monkeys or whatever, I don't know.
Or eat a monkey brain.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
No, I think that's what it is, and what certainly what draws me to those films. It's a similar thing with E.T. as well. Even though with E.T. I was actually terrified of him as a child to the point that I couldn't even be in the same room as it being on.
Oh wow, okay.
But I mean, as I've grown older, he's won me over. Spielberg has won that sort of childlike terror within me over, and now my relationship is positive. I'm glad to say.
There you go. Yeah. Finally, I'm not as scared of ET as
I was. That was the one thing I had to jump. That's the one thing I had to deal with in my life. That's it. God, everything else, fuck it. Just get over the ET fear, so I can sit and watch that film and appreciate it for the same sorts of things.
Yeah,
if not slightly different. Favorite Indiana Jones film?
Last Crusade.
Yeah,
okay. That's my favourite. I actually have. I've watched Temple of Doom a lot more for some reason.
See, I quite like Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good. I think there's something about Last Crusade and the thing Spielberg does with father figure is sort of flipped on its head, and I quite admire that about it. Yeah. Because usually it's an absent father or kind of a troubling father figure. In this one, it's more of a sort of jovial, oh, Dad, what are you like kind of thing. I love that about that. Last Crusade. There's a bit on the Hindenburg as well, which I thought was a really excellent action sequence, or it's an airship anyway. Temple of Doom is probably
the grimmest.
Yeah, it's really dark, man.
I remember rewatching it, not fairly recently, but recent enough to sort of. It was after a long period of time of not seeing it, and then I watched it. I was like, "Fucking hell!"
Yeah, there's like hearts getting ripped out and stuff.
Yeah.
Lucas and Spielberg were both going through a divorce at the time.
Maybe
apparently that's why it's darker.
Oh wow!
And they acknowledged that in interviews. They said sorry about that, because it wasn't as warmly received as
no. That tends to be the one that's sort of aside from the others.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. But no, I do like Temple of Doom. Actually, I think I prefer. I think they get better as they go along. Personally, because I rewatched Raiders quite recently and I liked it, but I wasn't that bowled over by it on the whole. Like
Okay.
I wasn't like, oh, that was fucking brilliant. But Temple of Doom is, there's some great stuff in that one. I remember a bit with the bats going overhead, and it's a prequel, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's a prequel.
Oh, okay.
Because the love interest is different.
Oh shit! Yeah, man, this is the kind of stuff we should research before, doesn't it?
I might be completely wrong, by the way. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely should have known that.
It's not obviously a prequel. Like,
No, true.
It exists on its own terms. So,
yeah. I think you sort of talk about the action sequences as well. I think that's sort of essential to that Spielbergian charm, is that Spielbergian dynamism.
Yeah, memorable action sequences.
He's just so good at those. He just pumped them out with aplomb in that trilogy, right? There's just so many good ones.
I mean, you can, you've got the airship bit, you've got the stunt where he goes under the truck, which is like all practically done and looks amazing. The one that really, really stands out to me is actually there's two in Temple of Doom. The minecart sequence.
Oh yeah,
and the bit where they're on that dinghy going down the mountain after the plane explodes, and then having like a chat in the I don't know, that's quite good. Fantastic action sequence, just really unique, really memorable, and they lost that in the fourth one. Didn't really have much.
Crystal.
Yeah.
Skull
of the crystal plumage.
I mean, fucking hell. I mean, it probably would have been again to the betterment of the podcast if I'd watched it, but I just can't do that again. I remember thinking it was pretty shit. Aliens, right?
Yeah, there's aliens at the end. I think in the context of Dial of Destiny and the suspension of disbelief that this franchise plays with, I just think there's something about it which I don't think it pulls it off all that well.
No.
Yeah.
I agree.
Anyway.
I think as well, given that the sort of, I guess the key sort of themes and idea for me anyway, thematically speaking, about Indiana Jones films is, not only having that child sense of wonderment by directing it at our history, ancient history, and how amazing and fascinating it is, and the pursuit of knowledge and finding out more and allowing that knowledge to not only frame our past but to use that to frame our future is one of the sort of strong through lines throughout the franchise, I think. And it's funny that Crystal Skull defaults to aliens, and not that aliens aren't interesting or anything like that, or the concept of aliens coming isn't interesting, but I think it sort of undermines that idea. It almost entertains this idea of conspiratorial stuff and conspiracy theories, which almost it's almost like, especially in the modern age, more palatable to people than like our history. And I often feel like particularly in Dial of Destiny, which I'll talk about a little bit more in this context, it's just like a way of saying no, like, how are you not fascinated by what's going on? What has gone on before us? There's so much that we don't know, and there's so much we do know, and the pursuit of that and the finding of that, isn't that not exciting enough for you guys? Like, why do we have to keep looking at the fucking sky and thinking about aliens all the time? And and the conspiracy theories that come with that. Again, I'm not blaming people that are interested in aliens. I just think that to me feels like an interesting theme, and I'd sort of forgotten about that in the context of Crystal Skull. And it almost feels like the Dial of Destiny is trying to like do away with that. Yeah,
largely. Yeah. There's something about Crystal Skull, like you say, that even though all three of the previous films have kind of an element of the supernatural in them, there's something about them being rooted in the history.
It's sort of theology, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like the most sort of, it's rooted in that theology. It's rooted in, stories that are sort of, I guess, sort of interwoven in the fabric of human history. Yeah. Obviously, Spielberg, dials up to 11 for, that intrigue, that fun, that sense of enjoyment, which you need to have, that is so intrinsically important to the Indiana Jones films. But I agree with you. I think it has some semblance of a basis in humanity in a way that works, which Crystal Skull doesn't have. Yeah.
Going back to what I was saying about suspension of disbelief, actually, even the first three play with it a little bit too much for me, and that might be what kept me from enjoying them 100%, like, and kind of having them deeply rooted in my childhood. There's just something about how most of the plot line of an Indiana Jones film is quite realistic, right? And that's helped by, I think, the stunts and like the way the story plays out. And at the end, there's like magic happens. I don't know. There's something that I actually think The Mummy did it better.
Oh really?
Yeah. I know, guys.
Oh, wow, that's a big.
Yeah.
I like this.
But
with some in for a big swing.
But it introduced the supernatural element early doors, so you knew what you were in for, and you had time to suspend your disbelief. And Indiana Jones, I don't think it does it. Like, because there's the bit at the end of Raiders where the guy's face melts off. Excellent practical effect, by the way. But it kind of takes a bit of a left turn, and I was just like, what? Okay, all right. So there's magic's happening. Cool, and you've ended it. Right. Okay. Fine. Bizarre. Don't know if it needs it. I think the hunt for artifacts is exciting enough for me. Anyway, don't know. Unpopular opinion, perhaps.
I think that's an interesting take from it. I quite like the descent into that because it's still, like I said, it still feels somewhat, as I said before, interwoven into our own human history.
Yeah.
And it sort of adds that thrill that I think Spielberg is so good at sort of drip feeding, and then sort of, I think you're right in the sense that he doesn't necessarily suggest that these things are going to happen. But what you said earlier, I think, about him taking left turns.
Yeah.
I think that just sort of works for me.
Oh,
but I can understand where he's
true,
coming from.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch The Mummy. I've not seen that for a very long time.
Yeah, I quite like it.
Yeah. I seem to remember
fun.
having quite a lot of reference for it growing up, and I've been interested to know how I feel about it now.
Yeah, heavily influenced by Indiana Jones, like no questions asked.
Oh, of course.
I mean, like Brendan Fraser's character.
He's a pound shot.
Yeah,
Jones,
pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, I don't get me wrong, he's not that bad in the film. He's pretty likeable, actually. But
he's good.
What I remember anyway, from sort of trying to cast my mind back to that 10-year-old, 12-year-old, whatever old, but kid mind of mine. Should we have a little ramble on the new one then?
Yeah.
A little discussion on the new one.
Yeah, let's delve deep.
In a similar vein to Flash, really. I think I came out of it after I needed a few minutes to actually sort of process what I'd seen.
Yeah.
And not necessarily because of the special effects, although in the opening they're deployed to pretty naff effect, actually.
Yeah, I thought they were better than Flash.
Oh God, yeah.
They seemed like I was saying last week. They seemed signed off. Like they seemed like there was some consideration. The problem is cinema screens are quite big, so you can tell. Like you look into Harrison Ford's digi-double's eyes, and you're like,
especially when he's then in action sequences. I mean, the first bit of the first film, I did think to myself, because obviously the first part of the first film was set when he's younger. It's still it's at the closing stages of the Second World War.
Yeah,
a lot of the original trilogy is set during the Second World War. Nazis feature pretty heavily. But it's to me, I just thought, why have that in there?
Yeah,
it didn't seem like. I know that there's a sort of like a reliance on that technology to make these things work, but I think if you think about something like The Irishman, for example, that you also use that de-aging technology, it'll only get you so far. Yeah, and I think there's still a way to go until it can be really convincingly used. I don't think it should be used at all, personally.
No, recast.
Just recast,
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand why that was so essential to the story to have that in. I know it was all about, establishing the sort of, the connection between the hero and the villain.
Yeah, and
the artifact,
Toby Jones and stuff.
Yeah, the artifact that is obviously the driving force of the movie, the Dial of Destiny itself. But I think they could have done that in a cleverer way and not had to rely on that technology. Because to me, it just sort of it set the film up on a dodgy path before it even really started.
Yeah, it felt like a showcase for technology that, like you say, is still in its infancy. And even to the point that young Indiana Jones, or not young as in the TV show, but Harrison Ford in 1944 is revealed literally by pulling a bag off his head, and you're meant to go, and instead you're like, oh, all right. A bit waxy.
Yeah.
And not a good start, I agree. I didn't find the action sequence itself to be a problem. Like, I liked what they did with I like a good train chase.
Oh, yeah, it's the bread and butter, isn't it?
Yeah, but definitely not needed. Could have been explained in a quick kind of expository conversation, perhaps, instead.
Yeah, or they could have just, had
a bit with Toby.
Set it in the same time.
Yeah.
Do you know what
exactly.
I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I don't really, it just seems strange to sort of rely so heavily on that technology. And when you probably could have just done something a little bit different.
Yeah.
It also just speaks to this idea of the nature of nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sort of a visual. To me, it's like just an immediate visual metaphor for how sort of toxic and weird it can be.
Yeah.
That you've got this sort of like older Harrison Ford playing his iconic character. He's had to be de-aged in order to try and sort of garner some sort of enthusiasm and to reconnect with the audience that love him so much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's something inherently a bit ghastly about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was thinking that as I was watching it, and maybe I'm thinking a little bit too much about it, and maybe I'm sort of ragging on that technology a little bit too hard, but I think it only ever seems to be used as a way to sort of cheaply try and recapture former glory, particularly in this case. And I just think it adds like an additional sort of layer of discomfort, which I really didn't appreciate or enjoy. When I'm supposed to be enjoying these sort of action sequences, which, as you said, were sort of competently put together in the spirit of Spielberg.
Yeah.
Because that's a big theme.
Yeah.
It's directed by James Mangold. Solid director.
Yeah.
A guy that's, he's worked in big franchises. He worked in, Wolverine.
Yeah.
Which, the first half you could say is okay. He did Logan, which was a real sort of departure from that superhero narrative style, relying more on the sort of influence of other genres and ideas.
Yeah.
For large parts of the movie.
Yeah. Love Logan.
Yeah,
great.
I like Logan. I mean,
success.
I really liked it after I saw it. I've seen it a couple of times since, and my gone slightly colder on it.
Oh, okay.
But I still like the movie, and I still appreciate what it tried to do. And then, of course, he made
Le Mans 66 / Ford v Ferrari, depending on what territory you're listening to this.
which is a very well-made movie.
Yeah.
It's not doesn't reinvent the wheel.
No, he did 310 to Yuma as well. Actually,
Yeah,
forgot about that.
Before,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just for some reason I decided to start
with the Wolverine.
From Wolverine, yeah.
Walk
the Line.
Walk the Line. Identity with John Cusack, quite a decent thriller.
So this is a guy that's solid. He's a solid pair of hands. He's had some solid moments as a genre filmmaker or as someone that's sort of, he's good at handling material and making something that feels familiar engaging.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you can see there's something slightly Mangoldian about his films, right? Like there's an equivalent there, and actually I did think it bled into Indiana Jones a little bit. Like there was moments in it where I was like, the way this is shot and the way this feels is a little bit like Logan, like just in some of the action sequences, and the kind of color palette and the way his kind of camera angles are. I admire him for not sticking religiously to what Spielberg was doing before. He did try and put his own stamp on it, despite the fact he's got like he's standing on the shoulder of like a giant. Yeah, but he held his own for some of it, and I admired that about this film. Actually, I don't know if you kind of got the same vibe.
Oh, yeah, I did. I still think at points it felt like a sort of like outsider's approximation of that Spielbergian charm that we've sort of waxed lyrical about already.
Yeah, okay.
But I think I agree with you, at least on the visual sense, that he was relying on himself and his own sort of...
Yeah, he's got his own instincts.
His own instincts, which I think is a brave thing to do. But I think, if you've been given the chance to direct this, then you should be allowed to do that, right? I mean, surely.
Yeah, they clearly trust him. But he apparently said no to the first screenplay. He's like, if you want me to do this, give me another year. Apparently, which is interesting because they wanted him to start it in 25 days, and he was like, absolutely not. Are you insane? So I think they tried to do a bit of a Warner Brothers on him, and he was like, no, this needs to be polished. So he at least, he's got a bit of a backbone about him in that regard as well. Apparently,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's commendable because you are standing in the shadow of an industry great and arguably one of his greatest properties.
Oh, completely.
And he has the bravery to at least stick to his own sort of creative impulses and the things that have made him a successful filmmaker in his own right, and I think that is definitely something that is commendable. Yeah. But I still just couldn't shake this idea that in parts it did feel like a sort of poor approximation of what Spielberg had done. I think that's maybe more thematic. The more thematic stuff than the
Yep.
sort of that sort of more dynamic sequences, the action sequences in the film.
Yeah. It didn't have as many gags as either.
No.
It did lack that, and I was hoping that they were going to surprise me with some of those. Yeah, I think also I wasn't actually that enamoured with Harrison Ford's performance either. I thought he was trying, but he was kind of just fine in it. Like if you put him alongside Han Solo in The Force Awakens, I don't know if I'd be able to tell the difference really. Do you know what I mean? Or
yes, actually, thinking about it, because I originally, in my Letterboxd review, I was actually quite positive about him, but I think maybe that's because he's just sort of like by association. He's the mask is on.
right,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
He's like, I'm Indiana Jones. The hat goes on. He doesn't necessarily need to do a lot of actual acting himself. He can just wear the get-up.
Okay,
And he could sort of just carry it. And I sort of see what you mean.
Yeah.
I also felt the same about him in Blade Runner 2049, now I think about it.
Yeah. He's just sort of being himself a little bit. I don't. It's not like he's not trying. Like he's clearly. Apparently, he's sort of trained for the role and stuff, and kind of got into shape, or as into shape as you can be when you're 80.
Yeah.
But there's something about it. Maybe I need to watch it again. But I wasn't that enamoured with him.
I think there's a couple of the sort of quieter scenes in the film. I think he showed that side a bit more.
Oh yeah, there's a scene on a boat actually really impressed me. Do you know which bit I meant?
Yeah,
when he was talking about his son.
His son who signs up and dies. I assume Vietnam.
Yeah, I think so. And that was an interesting way to deal with the whole Shia LaBeouf thing.
Yeah.
Mark Williams I kind of thought they dealt with that quite gracefully. That was quite a genuine, emotional moment in that film when he was talking to Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character on the boat about what's happened with his life in the interim. Although by and large, I actually didn't like how they dealt with, they do that thing, the washed up version that has to become the old version again. That is that annoys me.
It sort of undercuts a lot of the growth of the character in the original films, doesn't it? When immediately all of a sudden they're a washout, and they're sort of etching out this lonely, dusty life. And they need to get back in the game to realise all the things that they'd sort of forgotten about themselves.
Yeah,
it's a well used trope, particularly legacy films.
Oh, took the words out of my mouth
completely.
Sorry, no, literally, that was almost exactly what I would, what I kind of had to say about that. Yeah, the legacy film and the idea that they kind of poke fun of it a little bit in films like The Meg.
Yeah,
where it's like, I don't do this anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's that thing, and they do it here not very well. The only time where they deal with it quite well is, like I say, on that scene on the boat, which took me by surprise, and kind of gave some genuine reasons why he might be slightly dissatisfied and have a slight alcohol problem as well.
Yeah. They tried to drag him into the shade a little bit more, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think they just sort of, they just have a scene of him putting a bit of booze in his coffee, and it's like, oh, he's on the ropes.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Just like a really sort of quick, cheap, narrative device, or visual device, just to sort of go, oh, Harrison's on the ropes.
Yeah, and yet he can still ride a horse through New York. Absolutely fine.
Yeah. No amount of Irish coffees can prevent him from battling a Nazi who wants to go back in time and win the war.
Yeah.
Which again sort of felt bizarrely familiar, even though I can't think of any reasons why. But I kind of liked that. I kind of liked that there was this sort of throwback to an old enemy, in Nazism.
Yeah, I like the Nazis in it. I don't like the Nazis, but I
like the Nazis in it, and I was disappointed they lost. That's what Ben's got in his notes. I've just seen them.
So the words out of my mouth, right? No, I enjoy them as an adversary. I think that's sort of
it's fitting, isn't it? I mean, there's few things more satisfying in sort of mainstream, cinema than seeing Harrison Ford kick the shit out of a Nazi.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's, what more do you want?
If you want disposable enemies, they're the ones to go for, right?
Yeah,
almost universally hated group of individuals.
I think sort of going back to that sort of idea of the thrill of archaeology, the thrill of discovery, the thrill of history.
Yeah.
I think it's particularly interesting now when we consider it in the context of the Crystal Skull, as we mentioned earlier, about this sort of thing about aliens and the rise of the conspiracy theory. I couldn't shake this idea that throughout the film it was a really overt sort of like fuck you to this idea of conspiracy theories.
Okay, yeah.
You know, this idea that, you know, like actually, you know, human history is pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to include people that can levitate rocks and a super intelligent human civilization.
Yeah, yeah.
And all this sort of stuff. It could actually just be really impressive feats of ingenuity then, you know?
Yeah, okay. So
I don't know, I couldn't shake that
enough,
thought.
right?
I don't know if I'm sort of superimposing my own sort of thoughts onto that about it, but I just think that's always been such a consistent theme, as I said earlier, about this nature of being excited about what's not been discovered yet about us. You know?
Yeah.
And almost sort of this reliance on expertise and opposed to like people who claim expertise but don't actually have sort of the position in the field to actually justify what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because we very much do live in the era of the conspiracy theory, and it feels like they're rife in the discussions about history.
Oh man, yeah.
And these very well might end up being right, but so far it doesn't seem that way.
No.
But yet so many people feel so strongly that they are.
Yeah.
And I just think it was really interesting that the film, I felt, was sort of tackling that idea and just saying, you know, leave it to people like Indiana Jones. I don't think many archaeologists are like Indiana Jones. I think a lot of them would want to be like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Not to rag an archaeologist. I have a deep respect for the profession.
Yeah.
But no, I just thought that was interesting to talk about.
Yeah. No, they did explore that. I think the bit where he's in the classroom and everyone's looking a bit bored, and then he gets stimulated again by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I think it's called Helen. Helen in the is it Helen? Fuck,
I know they call her Wombat, don't they?
Yeah,
That's the sort of nickname she had as a child.
That's right. Yeah. Well, she kind of starts talking about Archimedes, and you can see his face light up, and you can see him kind of become really, really sort of enthusiastic about that, and this is your hero, right? This is the person you're following, and that should be enough. Like
and the moon landing comes in.
Oh yeah, it does.
So that again, I think that's where I started to get this idea. Was like this idea of like everyone's always looking up or thinking about the next big thing, or sort of becoming enamored with conspiracy theories.
Yeah, aka we didn't land on the moon. Whereas this is like, it's quite a big plot point, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's why it was why there's that parade. It's why he's getting irritated by those sort of 20 somethings having a party. It's Moon Day, man. Like, you're right. Actually, I didn't consider that. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm glad that it has that. That's something that is quite refreshing.
Yeah, I think it ties in well to those Spielbergian themes of, you know, wonderment in the unknown, in the face of the unknown.
Yeah, the tangible unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and there is actually so much to be excited about.
Yeah,
if you just sort of stopped talking about, you know, aliens and actually focused on human ingenuity in years gone by.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the time travel, once they get there, then what were your thoughts on in terms of suspension of disbelief?
I mean, to me, okay, this might sound a bit I'm sort of undermining what I've just said, but I actually quite liked that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was sort of, I think it was the most ridiculous thing that they've done.
Yeah.
There's some balls on it, I thought.
Fair enough.
I just thought, fucking hell, like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, this is a bit stupid.
Yeah, it is.
But I like the idea that Indiana Jones meets Archimedes.
Yeah, he wants to stay, doesn't he?
Yeah. And it's sort of, I kind of worried that he would end up staying.
Same, yeah.
And then Phoebe Waller-Bridge
socks him
one. I don't know. It sort of was sort of like ballsy and baffling in all the right ways to me, and it felt like a genuine risk in a way that a lot of other aspects of the film weren't that risky. I think we talk about Mangold's, you know, sticking to his guns stylistically speaking, but I think thematically speaking, there isn't a great deal of deviation from this idea of, remember this?
Yeah,
remember this? Remember the hat? Remember the whip?
Yeah. Got to go here to get this, to find this.
Yeah. Like, I think there was just at least some conviction to be like, no, we're gonna go back in time now.
Yeah. It was unexpected because I thought they were going to go back to 39.
Yeah.
I was really... I thought maybe they'd go back to like 1939, but in a different country when he was talking about continental drift.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, hold on a minute, is that the Armada? Like, no, that's even earlier than that. Okay, well, I quite like that. But yeah, for me, again, that the suspension of disbelief got really thrown. And that might just be... Because I've spoken to some other people about this earlier today, and they quite enjoyed the time travel sequence as well. So I think I might be alone in saying that I wasn't as keen on it personally. Don't know why. Again, it's just that suspension of disbelief that I just wasn't quite there for some reason, and it's a shame because a lot of other people spoke quite enthusiastically about it, so including yourself. So
yeah. I mean, again, I don't think it's going to stack up against the sort of moments in the older films that well, or in comparison to the older films. And people might say that's unfair, but the film clearly wants you to remember those old films throughout. So I think it is actually a really valid point to do that.
Yeah.
But I admired the ballsiness of it. Got a few comments here.
Ooh.
This was more about, because obviously the film's not been out that long. So when we put the poll out, or not the poll, sorry, the question out, just basically saying, are you going to watch the film, or have you watched the film? Have you got thoughts? So a lot of people were sort of talking about wanting to watch the film.
Right, yeah.
But tempering their expectations.
Okay.
So Alfie, obviously of Cineboy's fame.
Yeah.
Last on the Bloxploitation episode. Listen to that if you haven't already.
Yeah.
But he said, seeing it on Thursday, can't pretend I'm excited as it's been dragged, but holding out hope.
Ooh, okay.
So
I think he might enjoy it. I think he might be pleasantly surprised. Who knows? I think by the time this is out, he might have seen it. But there we go. Yeah.
Another fellow, Cinnamon Lee, saying, probably not. Disney have a way, like Star Wars, to make their films feel average. I can agree with pretty much across the board, actually, since they've inherited a lot of these franchises. They've really struggled to make an impact that hasn't been felt like filmmaking by committee, or at least filmmaking with the intent of making as much fucking money as possible.
Yeah. Very in the action sequences of Dial of Destiny, sometimes it feels really Disneyfied. There's a bit there's an underwater bit which is like kind of Disney-esque. No, the lack of practical stunts in it, although there was a chase scene in Tangiers which seemed quite tangible, but there's a definitely Disney stamp on it in that
tangible
respect.
in Tangiers.
Yes, yeah. Good title for a podcast. That.
Yeah. That's another one we've got.
Yeah. We'll record that after this episode.
Yeah, we're actually sat on the plane to Tangiers. Everyone else is just getting furious. Was going. Here's an interesting one.
Yeah,
Gavin, who's recommended the Nick Cage podcast.
Nick Cage one.
We will think about that, mate. It's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just getting the same people commenting in, but these are all good stuff anyway.
Yeah.
He's seeing it this week. I'm just hoping they butcher it by shoehorning in popular ideologies.
Okay.
It's an interesting question. I'm going to say that I think whilst it's obviously a good thing that that sort of the more socially conscious attitude towards casting, etc., is good. Obviously,
yeah.
I think we should always be suspicious of huge corporations jumping on the bandwagon, and doing things in a way that they think will maximise profit in certain groups of people.
I think so. It can feel a bit. I've used this word before. I don't know how. Prescriptive, would you say?
Disingenuous.
Yeah.
I think it's just this sort of way of saying, no, we're listening. So you're not necessarily listening by just sort of like just sort of tacking on a random character. Or,
What I will say, the inclusion of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, sort of noted kind of feminist actor. I liked her character in it. I didn't think it was she was out of place at all.
I thought she was great. I mean, she's fantastic. Fleabag is great. I hear Killing Eve is pretty good. She did a lot of work with that.
Yeah.
So she's clearly got the chops, not only as a performer but as a writer and behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So she absolutely earns her place in the film, and what levity exists in the film comes through her, and it's not forced or naff. So
no, they take time to really develop her properly. She doesn't feel shoehorned in at all. She's a welcome addition. I thought to it.
I think sort of a significant percentage of the good things in the film come through her, really.
Yeah.
So there's, I think we talk about Harrison Ford not necessarily having as much charisma as he once did. Maybe she sort of carries a bit of that charisma as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting point. I think it's worth sort of being aware of how corporations operate and how they obviously look to maximise profit.
Yeah.
And they will do that through the guise of sort of a social awareness.
Yeah.
However, I think this film does it well, and when it's done well, it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
to the growth of the medium.
It's set in the 60s, and the casting is largely done on that basis, if that makes sense. So it feels like a sort of a genuine kind of 60s setting.
I think there's even something to be said about the re-inclusion of Nazis in the film.
Yeah.
As something.
Bold,
yeah. I mean, just in the sense of this sort of thematic idea about the rise of troubling contingents. In our own history, in our own current history right now. So there might be something in that.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, it's quite a bold move.
Yeah,
because I mean, even having like a swastika in a film, that's going to be a difficult sign off, isn't it?
Yeah.
To even have that emblem, even if it's burning one, it's still going to be difficult in a kind of PG-13 movie to get that in there. So the fact that they did, and the fact that they kind of stayed true to the historical context in that respect is quite commendable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, sort of overall,
it was fine. It was fine.
A fine film, not fine in the sort of old-fashioned way of saying a great. But.
No, yeah. I think I might. It's forgettable ultimately. Lucasfilm, once pioneers, have now been overtaken, I think, and they're doing too much legacy stuff, and I think that's kind of an issue. That I'd love to see them do something new, but they did a good job hiring Mangold. I think he's a safe pair of hands in this context. It would have been nice for him to delve a little bit deeper into his own skill a little bit more as a filmmaker, but difficult to do with like almost $300 million budget. So fair play.
Yeah, I think Disney. I think they have just this habit now of playing everything really safe. I think they want people to bring their reverence for the Star Wars or the Indiana Jones to the table when they watch the film.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna try and damage that too much with any sort of creative decisions that might push these beloved characters into new territory.
Yeah, no.
And I think that is inherently a problem.
Yeah.
I think it speaks more, again, as we've said fucking so many times on this podcast, broadly to the issue that I think everyone's just playing it safe.
Yeah.
Even with the characters that it wouldn't even destroy the legacy, I don't think, of some Indiana Jones if they just did something really fucking weird with him in the final outing.
Yeah.
But I guess, the studios that have tried, if you think about the way that The Last Jedi maybe deviated from the model a little bit and was punished, or the Eternals in Marvel was punished, they hedged their bets with a filmmaker that focused on more sort of quietly meditative approach to sort of theme and narrative execution, and that backfired on them. So maybe our demands aren't sort of in line with those of the mainstream audiences that are going to continue to prop these behemoths up. But I think that's sad. I think it's sad that we keep our heads in these things and don't really have a hankering for something new, or at least something maybe within the same world but different. I don't know. New would be better, but shall we grab our hat and whip and get to the outro?
Yeah.
Questing the cinematic void.
There we have it then. Indiana Jones ends with a bit of a whimper.
Yeah.
Not significant enough to really mar the franchise in any meaningful way, but
no, I got the box set. I got the first three. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if I ever see it again, but I won't necessarily begrudge it if I have to.
Yeah, that'll be okay.
Might get a new fan love for it.
Yeah.
Who knows? So next week, we have been asked, are we going to do Asteroid City?
Okay, yes.
By a couple of people
Wesley
on our
Wales.
Instagram.
Wesley Wales Anderson.
I think we did dangle that in the end of the blaxploitation episode. I think we sort of
plotted trajectory, wasn't there?
Plotted out the next films, and I think that is what we're going to do. That is the film we're going to discuss.
Nice, cool.
Asteroid City. Wes Anderson seemingly doubling down on the aesthetic that has endeared himself to many, and also created probably a growing pool of detractors.
Myself included.
I can see both sides, actually. I sort of sit on the fence. I'm over Switzerland when it comes to Wes Anderson.
Oh, really?
And that's mood based. If I'm in the right mood for it, I'll be swept up by it. Like Moonrise Kingdom, I was in the right mood for that, and it absolutely, I fucking ended up adoring it. But then Grand Budapest Hotel, I was lukewarm to.
I don't like that film.
So I don't know, and I haven't seen French Dispatch, which I actually definitely will watch before we do the next episode.
I'll try and catch it as well if I can.
I think it'd be good to sort of, because I think he's really sort of riding high on this style.
He's doubling down on it. He's really he's gone in the opposite direction to the way I wanted him to go. Like, I wanted him to make a horror film. That's
would
what
be
I
cool.
wanted him to do.
I would be interested to see a Wes Anderson horror movie.
I'd really, really gunning for that, because I'd watch that. I'd probably really enjoy it. But instead, he's gone into a kind of that kind of sipping a tiny cup of tea territory instead.
Anyway, wearing an exercise headband. A lot of characters seem to wear those for some reason.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
it's strange, isn't it?
Bizarre.
Whilst drinking tea.
And
having a sort of monosyllabic exchange that doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah,
with a bright blue wall behind them.
Yeah, it looks like the top button's done up so tight that they can barely breathe.
Oh god, this is good. Basically, you've already got the tone of next week's episode.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just I'm a bit tired, but I can't find anything positive to say about him at the moment, and I actually quite like some of his films. Like The Fantastic Mr. Fox was quite good.
Yeah, Roll Tenenbaums.
I wasn't too keen on that. Rushmore, I like. Isle of Dogs, I quite enjoyed to an extent. I saw that with you actually. Yeah. But
many moons ago.
There we go. Yeah. Well, you never know. By the time we record it, I might have massively warmed to him and might be one of his supporters. So there you go.
There we go. Might be a little bit of a longer break than usual as you're on holiday, you lucky bastard.
Yeah.
So enjoy that. But in the meantime, enjoy 22 episodes.
Yes, 22.
Yeah.
Half of 50.
All the best. Love you lots.
See you later.
Keep the messages coming in. Bye-bye.
Bye.